So, we're back. This time we're going to be looking at arguments for and against the existence of God. Now, there are several different arguments which attempt to prove the existence of God, and people have developed these over thousands of years. Some are more convincing than others. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the five. The ontological argument is one that suggests that God is that than which nothing greater can be conceived, and we cannot think of anything greater than God, and therefore God exists. Then we've got the cosmological argument, that the universe must have come from somewhere, and Christians believe that it came from God. So God is the first cause. The teleological argument fundamentally comes down to the fact that the world shows that it's been designed, and it must have been created or designed by something or someone. And fourth, the argument from experience. People can experience God, which proves that He exists. This might be through miracles, conversion, answered prayers, or that sense of the other, the numinous. And then we've got the moral argument. People have a basic understanding of good and bad, right and wrong, and this knowledge must have come from God. There are lots of key people who proposed each of these arguments that you should probably be aware of. St Anselm was the chap who came up with the ontological argument. He was Archbishop of Canterbury between 1093 and 1109. Thomas Aquinas was the chap behind, or put together really, the first cause argument, the cosmological argument, and he was around between 1225 and 1274. Isaac Newton, who was a mathematician, you've probably heard of him from maths and physics, he was one of the first people that put together the design argument, the teleological argument. Another well-known proponent of that is William Paley, who was a clergyman who used the classic example of the watch. Someone else you might want to consider in your arguments for this, and we'll flick onto him again in a second, Charles Darwin, the naturalist who developed the theory of natural selection, which might go against that idea of design. Another good name to drop in, Rudolf Otto, who was the Christian theologian who talked about that idea of the numinous. So, keywords: Big Bang Theory, the scientific theory which suggests that there was a massive explosion about 18 billion years ago, which led to the creation of the whole universe. The idea of intelligent design, a theory that says that life is so complex that it must have been designed by a higher intelligent being and didn't evolve by natural selection. But what do we mean by natural selection? Well, that is a theory that tiny differences and genetic mutations between creatures of the same species can sometimes make one individual slightly better suited to the environment than others. It means that it survives longer and has more offspring who inherit that trait. The idea of a necessary being. That's a theory from Aquinas, that God must exist because He cannot not exist. That's kind of along the lines of the ontological argument. And the numinous, which I've dropped in a few times already, that mysterious power that suggests the presence of a spirit or God. Now, it's not always easy to explain beliefs, but it is important to challenge them. So, in order to see how well they stand up, and look for the flaws in arguments, both for and against belief in God. We're going to think about some of the arguments against God's existence now. Sorry, slight pause. Arguments against God's existence would say that if God was in control, why did He make us imperfect and incomplete in some way? Why not make us perfect first time, instead of us struggling to reach perfection? God can't be all good and all powerful as Christians say, because evil exists, and He does nothing about it. They would also argue that there's no need for a God for people to be moral and make good moral decisions. So, Voltaire, who's a French philosopher from kind of 1694 to around 1774, said this: if God did not exist, it would be necessary to invent Him. Now be careful how you use that quote and make sure you understand it fully before just dropping it into one of your 12-mark answers. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was a German Lutheran minister, very interesting chap actually, said this: a God who would let us prove his existence would be an idol. And perhaps when you're thinking about the problem of evil, it's not like Christians have an unquestioning acceptance of God. Rowan Williams, who was the Archbishop of Canterbury, asked this after the 2004 Asian tsunami. The question is, how can you believe in a God who permits suffering on this scale? It is therefore very much around at the moment, and it wouldn't be surprising if it weren't. Indeed, it would be wrong if it weren't. When faced with such evil or devastation in the world, even Christians would perhaps question the existence of God. So, if you're not clear on these two key words already, agnostic, someone who believes that it's impossible to know whether God exists or not, that's a good word to throw in. And an atheist, obviously, is someone who does not believe in the existence of God. Now, many people would say that faith is blind and not rational. God was once the explanation of things we don't understand, but it's interesting now that perhaps it is God who needs explaining.